Hey there, everybody. Today we're going to take a look at a game that quite possibly one of you recommended for me, or maybe I just picked it up myself. I don't remember which. But yeah, this time last year I was talking about how much I love mech games, and, giant fighting robots has always been a thing. And a bunch of you suggested a bunch of games. I picked up a lot of those games. This is one that I picked up at that time. It might have just been one that Steam was like, you're buying a lot of these kind of games. Or maybe it was suggested by one of you. If it was, thank you. Anyway, Armechgeddon. Just say Armageddon, I guess. And know that the word mech is hidden in there. Came out this year, 2024, by Mothcat. It was in beta for a year. That's how I got it last year. I purchased it when it was still in beta, but I only got around to playing it just now. Because, backlog, massive. Anyway, it's Vampire Survivors, but with mechs. Are we done? That's pretty much it. Like, if that's all you needed to hear, then that's all you needed to hear, is that it's Vampire Survivors, but with giant fighting robots. Pretty much that is what it is. But I will give more information than that. But the basics of it, that tells you most of what you need to know. Vampire Survivors, but with mechs. I love giant fighting robots. If you are of a certain age, then you probably do too, because all of our media, it's funny because it's what was coming out of Japan. So it's what was happening in Japan in the 70s. And then it gets imported to America in the 80s, and then it inspires other American shows in a Japanese style in the 80s. So that's where we get, I was always a big Voltron fan, still am to this day. Obviously, Transformers, huge influence. The original, not the Michael Bay bullcrap. I look forward to desecrating Michael Bay's grave someday for what he did to my childhood. And if you don't understand, then you don't understand. But if you grew up in a certain era, then you're like, oh yeah, he totally ruined my childhood and just took a steaming dump on it because he's a terrible person. Anyway, and if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't. But yeah, giant fighting robots were huge. And then I had these friends in high school, all of a sudden my small town high school had a teacher who was like, oh, I can teach Japanese. And the school was like, yeah, we need another foreign language. And so everybody started all of my friends started taking Japanese, and they got huge into manga before it was really popular in America. And they started finding all these cool anime shows. And that's when my friends start being like, oh, you need to watch Robocross, and you need to watch Gundam, like Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. And they were not wrong. And so, I've been on the fighting robots since forever. And it's always been a thing. And it's funny because, when I became a teacher, my students were like, hey, do you watch anime? And I was like, yeah, I totally do. And by anime, you mean giant fighting robots. And they're like, no, we mean teenagers with teenage problems, but they also fight, insert here, ghosts, demons, vampires, etc. It is a different vibe now than it was back then. Back in the day, we like giant fighting robots. Unaccountable, it's a generational difference. But some of us just like mech games. This is a mech game. And ultimately, that's what it is at its heart. But yeah, the art style is really nice. Has kind of a cell shaded feel. I like the way the game looks, which is good. Love nice, thick outlines on the model types and whatnot. It just gives a certain vibe that I enjoy. The gameplay is very much like Vampire Survivors. You don't control the shooting that much. There are buffs that you can get where it's like, okay, finally, this gun will shoot in the direction that the top half of your mech is facing. Because you can swivel it around and whatnot, twin sticky style. There are certain buffs like that, because some guns normally shoot backwards, some shoot frontwards, some shoot diagonally, which is a trip and fun to get used to. There are buffs that make it shoot the direction that you're facing, which is kind of funny when you think about it, but also it's that you've got similar things in Vampire Survivors. Anyway, the buffs that you pick up during the game and the ones that you get for leveling up during a round of gameplay, those are all temporary, but then between rounds you can purchase upgrades that are permanent. And so obviously that makes this a roguelite, not a roguelike, but a roguelite, if you will. And some of you will not, and some of you will, and that's up to you. It's fine. But yeah, that's the basic idea. So you are controlling the movement, you are choosing the upgrades, and then you are making your way through the level as best as you can with the upgrades that you have. And that's just kind of the way it goes. And then there are various pickups. There are spots on the board where you can, replenish your health and whatnot. But once you use them, then they're gone. So it becomes very important that you be strategic when you use them and whatnot. But yeah, mostly you are controlling the movement, and the movement is very satisfying. There are different types of mechs. There are ones that hover around and zip around the screen very quickly. There are ones that are like slow and plodding, that are armored up to all get out, but they don't move very quickly, but they shoot hard and have strong armor. And the more you play the game, the more you unlock, and the more choices you have. The unlockables, there are several types. You've got your upgrades that you unlock for, in between levels, those upgrades that you can add. A bunch of those are locked off when you start the game, and so you have to hit certain achievements to unlock all of the unlockables, which is kind of nice. Gives you something to work for, something to aim for in your gameplay during the levels. There are also different pilots, and your pilot determines the starting gun that you open the level with. And because your upgrades that you get offered for leveling up during the level are randomized, you don't know how long it's going to be until you get another gun. So yeah, I've played with the Bombardier, who just has a missile launcher, which is very powerful but very slow to charge. And so you are doing a lot of walking between the missiles going off. And, then there's, who has the minigun? The mercenary, I believe it's the mercenary, has the minigun. And he shoots very quickly, but it's a weaker gun, but it's easier to aim. So there are different benefits and different drawbacks to different pilots. There are also different mechs that you can unlock. I mentioned some of the differences. Some are very quick but lightly armored. Some are very slow but heavily armored. And then there are just different types of mechs with different abilities to them. each one of them has a different melee attack, which is interesting because you also don't control the melee attack. And so it's kind of random. Like, you will melee attack if there is one enemy directly in your path. If it's multiple enemies, you're going to take a hit. So that's kind of an interesting little quirk of the game. And then there are levels. There are like 7 levels, each of which you can play on 3 different levels. Level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 3 being the most difficult, but you can't play level 3 on any of them until you've beaten level 1 on all of them. You play through all of the levels on level 1, and then you play through all of the levels on level 2, and then you can play through all of the levels on level 3. And it's actually very well balanced as to how the unlockables meet the level that you're on. So, balances that feeling of like, oh, there are swarms of enemies coming at me, but I am a decent match for the challenge that I am being given. Only rarely are you going to feel overwhelmed, and typically that is when you are starting a new level for the first time, because you need some upgrades in order to be able to handle the new level. That's just how it goes. So it's really interesting how they balance the game, but it's also crucial. Like, if you're going to keep coming back again and again, and I found myself, like, I needed at most 15 minutes of footage for this. I recorded like 45 minutes of footage. And that's, like, when I started playing the game, it was like, I better unlock some of these unlockables so that I can show what the gameplay is really like. And then I just got driven and forgot that I was, like, doing it so that I could record footage. Yeah, I was really enjoying the game. But in a lot of ways, I think it's going to be like Vampire Survivors, in which you're going to get obsessed with it for a while and then unlock everything and then put it on a shelf. But there's nothing wrong with that. And it's also not a super expensive game, so yeah, you can afford to do that. Anyway, let's put a final score on it, and then we'll be done. Okay, so final score for Armechgeddon. We are going an 8 out of a possible 10 Arcas from Vampire Survivors. Yeah, because it's very much like Vampire Survivors, but with mechs, as I said. So yeah, it's a really fun game, and I really like it. And you might like it too, if you like giant fighting robots. Anyway, people, that's going to do it for this one. I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.